In today's video, I'd like to talk about what emotional intelligence is and how to develop emotional intelligence within yourself so that you can become less reactive and more proactive when it comes to situations and circumstances in your life. So emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your emotions, understand what your emotions are telling you, and realize how your emotions are affecting you. And also realizing how your emotions are affecting other people. So it is ultimately a mastery over your emotions. It's being able to handle them and knowing how to regulate yourself so that you don't become reactive and so that you're not setting yourself up constantly for pain, right? Most people have a lot of triggers that they don't work through. And if you don't understand your triggers, and emotional intelligence is about knowing your triggers and understanding them, then you're going to be susceptible to people constantly pressing those trigger buttons. There are 5 elements that define emotional intelligence: self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Emotional intelligence is definitely something that can be learned, and it's something that can be developed over time. So even someone that is highly reactive and very easily triggered can learn how to regulate themselves and can develop emotional intelligence through different ways, which I'm going to get into in a moment. That will allow you to be, 1, just less reactive overall, 2, to have way more peace in your life, which returns you to your power and brings out the leader in you. I'd like to share some examples to show you what emotional intelligence looks like. And as I share these examples, think about yourself, of course, first and foremost, and how much you have mastered some or all of these traits, which will help you to understand where you're at in terms of your emotional advancement and intelligence. And then also think about some of the people that you have encountered in your life, perhaps people that were important to you or people that have influenced your life in some kind of a way, and what their level of emotional intelligence was when you interacted with them. And you're going to know that based on these examples of emotional intelligence that I'm going to be sharing with you. So primary example would be not getting angry in stressful situations. So this is an ability to stay calm and in control in difficult situations and being very solution oriented. So focusing on finding solutions immediately instead of focusing on the problem itself. So someone who is highly emotionally intelligent is really good at making decisions and absolutely knows when to trust their intuition. So they're listening, they're tapped into their intuition, and that's what they lead with versus those emotional triggers that cause you to take action, right? It's very different to act from a knowing, from an intuition, versus acting from an emotional trigger. It's also willingness to look at yourself honestly and taking criticism well. So when you are emotionally intelligent, then you're not offended by criticism. And I'd like to use an example from our current modern world, right? When you look online of all the emotionally triggered or emotionally unintelligent comments that people get, on their videos or on posts or all kinds of different things, or just like some of the stuff that people are sharing online, right? It just goes to show how our society as a whole has a lot of growing up to do, right? And this is why everyone is offended by everything nowadays, right? And have these emotional reactions to things that they probably normally wouldn't have reactions over if they understood that, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and that's not something that we need to be taking personally. Like, your opinion is your opinion, right? And it doesn't mean that it has to match with mine. It doesn't mean that we have to be on the same page even, right? An emotionally intelligent person isn't going to be bothered by those things. And on the other hand, it is also about knowing when to take that criticism and use it to actually improve your performance or to do better, right? So there is such a thing as constructive criticism, and sometimes certain comments or certain things that people say will be almost like a recommendation, like, well, I didn't like this, that you did this or that or whatever, right? And that can be taken kind of as a recommendation or as an opportunity to improve yourself. So 100%, it is the ability to respond to situations and to people, places, and things versus react. So being emotionally intelligent means that you know yourself on a deep level while simultaneously also having an ability to sense the needs of other people, which then, of course, will have a very positive effect on your relationships, right? When you know who you are and when you have a sense of what other people's emotional needs are, this really allows you to manage relationships more effectively. So it's about making others feel good as well, being tapped into that and just knowing how someone, could be reactive or they could be in a bad mood, not because of anything you did, right? Not taking that personally, but just recognizing that maybe something set them off. So it's about not letting your feelings rule you and get out of control. It's also about being confident and like embodying your confidence. An emotionally intelligent person becomes that because they know themselves on a deep level and they have that self-confidence within themselves because they know themselves on a deep level. So it's like all connected, right? It's also about knowing your weaknesses and working on those weaknesses. Every single one of us has strengths and weaknesses. Are you aware of yours? Are you aware of what sets you off? What triggers you, particularly emotionally? It's also about not making careless or impulsive decisions. So it's this ability to control yourself, to not dive into something before really thinking it through, on whether that's the right direction for you or the right action to take. This is about thinking before acting, being comfortable with change, having integrity, and an ability to say no. At times we need to say no in order to maintain our integrity, to stay in alignment with our values. High emotional intelligence also fosters motivation, high productivity, and a willingness to defer immediate results for long-term success. So it's about making those sacrifices that you know that you need to make so that you can have some type of long-term success. And being okay with not getting rewards immediately, right? Anything that requires a longer investment of time and energy and effort allows you to grow. It allows you to become a better person. So when you can release that attachment to the like, oh, but I want the likes now, or I want the high number of subscribers, or I want that high income now, right? It's like when you want things in the now, that means that you're not going to be willing to put in that long-term effort that will yield the results that you're actually looking for. High emotional intelligence is also about having really good listening skills and an ability to read between the lines. So when you're interacting with other people, are you a good listener? And are you able to read between the lines when they're talking? Are you able to pick up on little cues, little body language cues and different sort of messages that come from not the words that they're saying, but perhaps like a vibe that you're picking up off of them, or just how they're moving. And like I said, body language is constantly, we call it body language for a reason, because it's a full communication, right? And if you really pay attention to people, then you will begin to read between the lines of like, hey, maybe they're saying one thing, but I can tell that they feel, a different way. It's also about avoiding stereotyping and judging people too quickly and living life in a very open and honest way. So emotionally intelligent people are easy to talk to. Usually they are team players and they help others to shine, to also develop, because they have that capacity to hold space for others as well. So now that you kind of have a sense of like what it means to be emotionally intelligent, let's talk about how to actually develop emotional intelligence, because let's face it, our society is in big need of developing that at this time, particularly as we are moving into, facing some challenges, some different things, and how you show up, in each challenge and how you respond versus react to situations, difficulties, challenges in your life is really going to make a world of a difference in terms of how you're feeling, right? It's like you're always more proud of yourself when you handle a situation well, aren't you? And that's perfectly normal. You're proud because you know that you handled it in a way that was mature, in a way that was valuing your needs, but also recognizing and perhaps valuing your boundaries, but also recognizing the other person and, you know, who they are and why they are reacting perhaps or showing up the way that they're showing up. So to develop your emotional intelligence, pay attention and observe how you react to other people. And here's some questions that you can write down and journal on if you would like to really kind of take a deeper dive within yourself. Then sit with these questions and kind of feel into like how you show up, and be very, very honest when you're answering these questions, because this is a very good opportunity to also practice emotional intelligence by not judging yourself and just simply observing, like, oh, wow, okay, I do that. And then working on that, right? So do you rush to judgment before you know all of the facts? There are so many people online that do that. Do you stereotype? Look honestly at how you think and interact with other people. Put yourself in their shoes and be more open and accepting of their perspectives and needs. Okay, so just sit with these questions. Do I rush to judgment before I know all of the facts when it comes to any situation, when it comes to any person? And I'm going to say guilty, because we all do this. We all do this, but it's about catching yourself, right? And the more you catch yourself, the more observant you become of who you are on a deeper level, the more that you're going to start to see, like, you know what, I don't like that about me. Like, that's not something that I want to keep doing. It doesn't make me feel good to kind of jump to conclusions all the time. So it's like, I'm going to allow myself to flow more. I'm going to allow myself to relax more and be way less judgmental. And the thing I want to mention here too about judgment is that the more that you judge yourself, the more that you are going to judge other people. That just goes hand in hand. And actually, that's where judgment comes from in the first place. So the moment that you address your own judgments towards yourself is the moment that you begin to heal them. And it's the moment that you will start to shift out of judging other people as well. We are mirrors in society for one another, and we mirror things to each other constantly with our interactions, through our interactions, you know, through all kinds of different situations. We're always mirroring to each other the things that we need to work on within ourselves, because oftentimes people are feeling like victims, right? Or they're in that victim mentality, and then they're pointing the finger and blaming instead of just recognizing that they actually have the power and the control, if they so choose to use it, you know, to take a hold of the situation, and that they don't need to blame anyone outside of themselves. It's just about recognizing who you are. That's what self-development is. Self-mastery comes from knowing who you are, and emotional intelligence comes from self-mastery. So next time, before you judge another person, can you just pause yourself and ask yourself, hey, let me just put myself in their shoes for a moment and just try, because you're not going to be able to completely, but at least try to contemplate what they must be experiencing right now, or what they must be feeling right now, right? That really deeply develops your sense of compassion and kindness and love for other people, and understanding for other people. You never know the silent battles that people face while they have a smile on their face, and they don't tell you about it. Another way that you can develop your emotional intelligence is by looking at your work environment. So are you someone that will typically look for praise? Praise from your coworkers, or praise from your boss or superiors? Because if you are, then that indicates that there is some work that needs to be done when it comes to your emotional intelligence. You know, are you seeking attention for your accomplishments? Are you seeking some type of validation, some type of recognition? Can you give yourself that recognition? And can you pat yourself on the back and say, you know what, I'm proud of myself. I did a good job on that, even if it doesn't come from the outside. Humility doesn't mean that you are shy or that you're lacking self-confidence. It simply means that you are aware of who you are. You know yourself well enough that you're able to recognize your own accomplishments and feel good about it. So when it comes to your work environment, give others a chance to shine, and don't worry too much about getting praised for your accomplishments or for the good work that you do. And, if it goes unnoticed for long periods of time, because it's not about like ignoring what you deserve. So if you feel like you deserve a pay raise because you've really been putting in a lot of work and you're seeing other people are advancing and they're getting pay raises, then 100% speak up for yourself. So this isn't about, humility isn't about like completely taking a back seat and then allowing, fate or things to just play out as they will, but rather being proactive. So it's also an ability to recognize over time, like, hey, I'm really ready for this promotion. I'm really ready to go up the ladder and I deserve this position, right? And in that case, you need to open your mouth. You need to be able to communicate that, and you need to have that confidence within yourself to stand in front of your superiors or your boss or whoever and let them know that I need a raise for the work that I'm doing, for the energy and the love and the dedication that I'm putting into this project or into this company or whatever. I deserve a raise. And when any time that you are asking for a raise, you make sure that you have a number in mind. Do your research, see what the going rate is for that position in general, and put a number out there. Don't be afraid to ask others to meet your needs. The third thing when it comes to developing your emotional intelligence is doing a self-evaluation. So this would be getting very real and very honest with yourself about what your weaknesses are. I would even write them out. I am such a promoter of journaling and of writing things out because it's very, very helpful. So writing out all of your weaknesses is going to give you such a clear picture and understanding of all the areas that you need to develop within yourself, that you need to work on within yourself. Are you willing to accept that you're not perfect? And that there are some areas within you that you could definitely work on to improve, to become a better person, to make yourself a better person. The next way in which you can develop your emotional intelligence is by examining how you react to stressful situations. And this is such a good one because it's one of the clearest indicators of where you're at. So people that are super reactive emotionally about all kinds of different things, even little things, have some work to do. Those people essentially have some growing up to do, right? There's a reason why, little kids throw tantrums and adults don't. But then when you look out into the world and then we see all these people online, there's so much evidence of it, of other people who are actually throwing tantrums, right, in full adult form. Right, goes to show that that was not something that they were ever taught. They don't know how to deal with stress. They have no coping mechanisms in place within themselves. So do you become upset every time that there's a delay or something that doesn't happen the way that you want? Do you blame others or become angry at them, even when it's not their fault? And just think of this for a moment, like the ability to stay calm and in control, especially in difficult or stressful situations, is something that is highly valued, especially in the business world, right? Especially when it comes to leadership roles, to management roles. Those are the kind of people that companies typically look for. Because if you're someone that just can't respond appropriately to a stressful situation and you're going to get all emotional about it and take things personally, that's not going to work out well for the company. So these are things, and as I was doing some research about emotional intelligence, this was something that I came across. There was an article that I found where they spoke about that, how companies are now looking a lot more at emotional intelligence, and that they will pose questions that relate to or will give an idea of a person's level of emotional intelligence in interviews versus like credentials or education. Because credentials and education is one thing, but how you are as a person and how you respond to stress is a big factor in how you're going to show up when some kind of situation happens at work, right? And how you're going to deal with that. Because a highly emotionally intelligent person is going to stay calm and they're going to be immediately focused on a solution and they're going to be looking for that solution versus just like obsessing over the problem. Another way to develop your emotional intelligence, and this is a big one, is to take responsibility for your actions. A lot of people refuse to take responsibility, and they play the victim card and they want to blame other people instead of recognizing what their role was in the situation. So if you hurt someone's feelings, apologize directly. Don't avoid that person. Don't avoid the situation. Just apologize directly. People are usually so much more willing to forgive and forget when you can honestly, stand in front of them and apologize, because then they see and they recognize that this is your honest attempt to make things right. And that really shows your character and who you are as a person. Somebody that is able to apologize for something that they did wrong really, really shows their character. And the last thing that I wrote down for developing your emotional intelligence is examining how your actions are going to affect another person. And this examination, of course, needs to be done before you take the action. So if your decision will impact another, then put yourself in their place and ask yourself, how will they feel if I do this? Would I want this experience? And if you have to take action, and I always, always recommend and encourage everyone to take action based on your heart, not what your mind says, but what your heart says, because the heart is the truth, then how can you help that other person deal with the effects? Because there's always a consequence to whatever you decide, right? Whatever you choose. So as long as you measure these and give it some thought before you take some kind of action, and as long as you're willing to help that other individual deal with the effect of whatever you have decided, like if you're in a relationship that you feel isn't right for you and you know that you want to walk away from it or would like to get out of that relationship, then it would be very important for you to be able to stand in front of that person and honestly communicate with them, because that is your heart's truth. Tell them that I know this is going to hurt you and I'm sorry, or I know this hurts you and I'm sorry. I never intended for you to get hurt, but I must be true to myself first. And you always must be true to yourself first. That can be a very tough lesson. It's a lesson I've had to learn kind of repeatedly in my own personal life, especially in my 30s. It was like this process of moving through understanding that at the end of the day, only I am solely responsible for my happiness. No one else is responsible for my happiness. And sometimes we have to make decisions in life that others will not be pleased by, but it will be the right decision for you. So keep that in mind as you move through this journey of becoming emotionally more wise, more intelligent, and really have grace and have patience with yourself as you are learning this, because it takes time. You don't necessarily become emotionally intelligent overnight. It is definitely a process. And the process is always based on experiences, right? The more experiences that you have with other people, especially difficult experiences, the more that you are basically challenged to recognize where you still need to grow emotionally, where your responses could have been better, where your actions could have been better, where how you approached a situation could have been better, how you viewed a situation could have been better. All challenges and all difficulties are essentially trying to help us grow up. They're trying to help us become a better version of ourselves. So it's just a matter of perspective. It's how you look at it. So that is what I have on emotional intelligence. I hope that you take a little time to reflect on your own emotional intelligence. And like I said, on the emotional intelligence of the people that you have encountered over your lifetime, and perhaps some very specific relationships that have been challenging for you, and when you realize that, oh my gosh, okay, so they were just like very unintelligent emotionally, like they were basically very childish, and that's why they were acting the way they were acting or treating me the way they were treating me, then it's going to be a lot easier to move to that space of forgiveness. When you recognize that people are only operating from the level of consciousness that they embody, when you understand that, you're not going to take anything personally anymore. So thank you so much for watching. Do hit a like on your way out, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.